Yeah. Get my documents going here. Share. Okay, Stan, so do you have me up on the
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
projector?
We do.
Okay. So if I mess up here, you're going to see everything.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. All right. So let's walk through the storyboard. This is a copy of what we set a week or so ago, but then we have some new additions to the extra PowerPoint presentation. So essentially, I think as we talked a little bit about, when I was there on site, the payroll is going to be included or emerged into what you guys know today as the QFSM, the FSM Food Safety Manager System. And the reason behind that is that that's where we already have an employee master started. And we also are envisioning putting in a lot of the production activities into QFSM and then leaving the PM, the partner management system to be the one that has the sales data. Now, granted, they're not two different systems because they're really one system with one database, but we're still kind of think of them somewhat separately. But this is just a sample of the login page, and some of the screens that you're going to see are representative of the FSM Food Safety Manager System that we have today. So essentially the roadmap, and this is very, very high level. So, we of course realize there's a lot of different steps involved with each of these bullet points. But essentially, we want to take the progression of, how data would flow through the system. So the first area of concentration is going to be with the setup tables, all the master files, what needs to get completed, what needs to get, what new fields need to be added, etc. The premise that we're taking is that, we have the existing payroll system and we're using a lot of that as a reference. But then we're also taking the input that was provided by Sonia and Jody and their team over there, as well as Brooke, taking everyone's input from our visit to gather your requirements. The setup tables is the first step, and then we're going to then begin to work on the data entry piece of that, which includes hourly piecework and other miscellaneous type of transactions. We're keeping in mind, Roy, I know you've said it, many times that, and I know Sonia and Jody have said it, the data entry needs to be fast. The users need to be able to, use the tab keys and enter the data, as quickly as possible, and they don't want to use the mouse. So those comments are taken accordingly. We also know that you guys have interfaces, so we need to look at the upload of payroll from Novatime and Hamtrack. Then the payroll process where it does, all the calculations, the tax calculations, make-up pay, minimum wage, etc. Then go through check printing. Creating grower invoices is something new. It's a requirement, that you will have within your payroll system that you have now, which we did not have in our existing older payroll system. Bank reconciliation of cleared checks, and then the download of the info into Hamtrack, because Sonia was telling us about that as well. And we have monthly, quarterly, and yearly processing, as well as the W-2 and 1099 generation. As I said, that's very, very high level. I mean, is there any items that you guys see that's missing here that you consider high level? Brooke? Anybody?
We're thinking.
That is actually on the agenda to talk about.
Not that I can really think of, no.
Okay. And guys, just know, I mean, once we get into a lot of the nitty-gritties of a lot of this, and I'm going to show you an SRS document which outlines a lot of the details. And as we're working through that internally, we have noted some questions based on our previous discussions. And as we get into more detailed development, we may have more questions that we'll need to schedule sessions with you guys to kind of clarify, some of the information throughout any of these steps.
Understood.
Okay. So the first part is, of course, talking about the setup tables. So these are some of the main tables. Now, granted, it may not be all of them, but these are some of the main ones. And the next several slides that you'll see are all samples of these particular screens. So, for example, we have employee types, and this is the QFSM system, as I mentioned before. Where's my pointer? Here we go. So over here on the left is the menu navigation. So the current system already has an employee type, so this is where you can determine, maybe is this a foreman or a crew leader, or, are these, I don't know, you can just give them a different category. Are they a picker? Are they working in the warehouse? Are they working in the orchard? That type of thing. And then we have our employees. So this is the existing employee master that's in the current system. It's right now, of course, it's very basic. That's just a copy of the main screen, is what you all would call, maybe on our sales operations system, the driver screen, if you will. And then here's the current employee master, where you have, of course, their name and address, some phone numbers, etc. And then what we're going to be doing is adding another tab here to control the payroll type data. And that will be, controlled based on user authority. You don't want everybody in looking at employees' payroll information. So that'll be secured. And within that, then we get into a lot more of the details. The hire date, their status, whether their social security number, their visa number, passport number, birthdays, etc. And I'll forward, Stan, I forgot. I didn't forward you this newer presentation, so I'll forward that to you after the session.
All right.
Then you guys can kind of look at some of this.
Okay.
Now, the way we envision this is, the little blue boxes are either calendar pop-ups or, the drop-down. So you would hit the little down arrow and you get to pick one, whether they're persons, hourly, salary, what have you. The valid options would show. So that'll be nice. So you don't have to remember, well, what is BFH or whatever some of the one-character codes are that we have in some of the existing systems. And then since there's a lot of different information that relates to payroll, a master file for an employee, then we're going to do these, we call these, I think, row expanders, so that you would click on this little icon here, this button, and this section would open up. Same with these other sections. So these are all different sections that would then expand and show up on the screen, and you would just continue to scroll down. So those sample screens are what you see once you hit one of those row expanders.
Are you able to move between fields with a tab?
Yes. So here's an example of some deductions. There is another screen further down in this
I can't see him here either, so it's just fuzzy. Can't see him here either. She said she was going to send us the presentation, but I don't know how much more clear it'll be.
We only allow 10 deductions. That won't be the case with the new payroll. So you'll have a master file where you can just define your deductions, and whatever deductions you define would then display on this screen. And then, keep losing my pointer. Then all you would have to do is, if that deduction applies to that particular employee, is just key in the amount, percentage, or if there's a limit, et cetera, et cetera. you would hit this other row expander, and then you get, this whole other section. Looks like it has to do with, piecework, federal withholding. Oh wait, no, that's the top section. Sorry, that's down here. I can't read it. The thing is so small.
Yeah, we're having the same trouble.
Yeah.
Vacation sick, Kathy.
It is? Okay. Oh yeah, I see it now. Current payroll, employee vacation sick hours and policies, etc.
Are you guys setting this up to be able to allow basically electronic submission of payroll data to like banks for direct pay? Did you have that in the old payroll? I was just seeing the bank account number and stuff on there.
Yeah, we have direct deposit in the other payroll, in the old payroll. I don't remember, Brooke. I'd have to look and see it in our notes. I don't have all that memorized, but I'm sure you provided us with your bank that you're using for that. I don't know. We'd have to clarify that we have that information as to what bank you deal with as far as your direct deposit.
Okay.
I know some banks may have different formats and so on and so forth, so
We
let
don't
me
do
make a
direct
note of that
deposit at this point.
to make sure we have that
Oh, for
information.
the budget side.
Or for the warehouse, nowhere.
Is that with the warehouse payroll?
Actually, we don't really have that in the orchard or the warehouse. We do have that for salary payroll, but it's done through an ADP payroll system.
Oh, okay.
But it's something I don't want to get rid of because I think that's where we have to go someday. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I think Washington Fruit does that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Washington Fruit does that. So, whatever capabilities were in the old are going to be in the new.
Yeah. Okay.
We would just have to, get the bank information for whichever, bank you work with, and then see if it matches what's in there right now, or how it would be different. I'm not sure.
Do you know if you guys have anything built into the current payroll for Washington Fruit on positive pay? You know what that is?
Yeah, I do. Bill, do you recall that?
I don't think we have positive pay for payroll.
Okay.
We certainly have.
We did it for accounts payable, but not
Right.
payroll.
Oh, you do have it for an
Right.
AP. In the current system, we have that in AP?
Yeah. Yeah, for certain banks.
Okay. Could you let me know which banks you guys have that set up for?
Yeah, I have to verify.
Okay.
Okay, I made a note of that. Okay, so that was the vacation sick on the previous slide. So this one is the employee state tax. That opens a this little section, so you get the various fields here. Oh, and just one thing I wanted to point out. These are our first renditions of the screens. We're in the process of going back through to make sure that we have everything. So if you guys are looking at some of these, you may find there's a couple things that you may say, well, where is so and so? So we're in that process right now to ensure that all of the fields that we're going to put here in the employee master are in fact in these screens. So if you see anything, just zip us an email, or maybe compile your questions, all together in one email, and then we can address your questions.
Well, Kathy, based on that statement,
Yeah.
The fact that you're having trouble seeing your PowerPoint presentation, I assume that we'd have that same issue. So, is there, better screen captures or something we can look at?
Yeah. Let me see how I can get these blown up so you can see them better.
All right.
It's probably because I squished them into this PowerPoint that they got really small.
All right.
Hold on, I'm just making some notes.
Understood.
Okay. So that was the employee master. This was I went past that. The W-2 screen. down here at the bottom. Okay, then we have our deductions. So this we anticipate, like I said, just kind of being, unlimited. You would hit this would be like the driver screen. You would hit a create button and to define your deduction. How you need it to accumulate, what the tax implications are, if there's any maximum, etc. Any limits. What do you do when you clear? So some of these things we might still need to work through as far as, in the existing payroll, we had to create what's called a weekly header so that every payroll process you had to set up this weekly header and then clear accumulators and so on. So some of these screens may change, in the end if we decide not to do the weekly header concept. But this is pretty much, what it would look like as far as setting up your deductions. This is just setting up the type of deductions. Here's where we have our location master. You can set up different locations where you define workman's comp type information as well as, check amounts, GL type data, L&I information. That just shows you some of the options that are available there at the location level. The federal tax table, really similar to what we have in the old payroll. So you have your, of course, your single status, your married status with the base amounts with the tax rates, minimum wage down below.
Do they update this?
Kathy, in the federal tax thing, is that something that you guys have like a import on every year that updates the system, or you guys update those tax tables?
I think that'll be the goal, Brooke. I don't know that we'll have that, right out of the box up front, but I know we've talked about that.
That's a pretty standard requirement, isn't it?
Yeah.
In a payroll system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm putting it as a note. I'll have to go back and look at our detailed notes to see if that was.
Yeah, that's that's very standard in all the payrolls we've had in the past. That's just,
okay.
Not something we've had to maintain.
Yeah. Okay. I made a note. What we can do is some of these questions that you guys are asking is, and like we said before we started this review of the PowerPoint, we had some questions today, and I think Stacey, you guys talked about having a monthly meeting. We may need to do it sooner, a little bit more frequent, if we have questions and topics that we need to discuss. So what we can do is just take a list of these questions, and the next time we have our meeting, another meeting, maybe next week or the week after, then we can address your questions that you asked this week.
Sounds good.
Would you like it bi-monthly, set it that way, or whether needed or not, or?
Yeah, let's see how we get through today to see if it's something that we may need to do weekly to kind of start off with, and then if that's too much, then we may need to go to bi-weekly. And let's see how many questions or things that we're not able to answer today to see if we need to go ahead and set something for next week.
Alrighty.
Okay, so this is workman's comp and L&I type information. That was a pretty simple little table there. State unemployment tax. Nice thing. We're getting to the end. There's a labor function code. I remember we talked a little bit about this when we were on site. How you guys might be able to use these. I've just lost the term now of what you guys use now. But there was there's a similarity and a feature that you guys have in your current famous system that related to a labor function code, and I've just lost the term. it wasn't charge tag.
Charge tag.
Say again?
It was charge tag.
I don't know. I'm thinking charge tags to be related to grower invoices, where you needed to charge a grower for something.
Yeah, I think that's more the case.
Yeah, it'll probably come to me later on.
Talking like distribution fields.
Yeah.
It says field, there's something, there's another term. Field.
Okay, what questions on that?
No, we're just doing the same thing that you are, trying to figure out what the term is.
Okay. Well, the labor function code is something that you can assign with the default labor rate, and then it had an associated account number. So if someone was out doing like picking or pruning or spraying or something, you could assign it we call it a labor function code. And you guys they had a term for it over there, and I forgot the name.
There's that cougar labor we were talking about, Kathy.
Yeah, I see that.
Kathy, what
Yes, ma'am.
are the different ways you can set up labor rates in this? I mean, can you assign it at the employee level, at the job level, and also be able to override it at the timesheet level? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there was the labor function code, and I just found my note. You guys call it phase.
Yeah, field and phase.
That's it.
Yeah. So I have labor function code equals a phase, and I have I'll get back to your question, Brooke. And I have location equals facility equals cost center
Yeah.
that we talked about. Yeah, there is a hierarchy, and I don't quote me on this in like 100%, but I think it was like labor function code, employee master, and then you can override it on the screen. I don't know, Adrian and Bill, do you recall what the hierarchy is off the top of your head?
I
Okay.
think it was if there's a labor code, it would take that rate. If the employee had a rate, it would take that one. If when you're doing the timesheet, you could override it.
So we get time as the hierarchy, the highest employee, and then the labor function code in the file.
Okay. I got it close.
Oh, no, that makes sense.
Okay.
Kathy, one other question.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought through, I think the way we've described it in the past is needing almost two separate employee masters that will eventually feed to our one Givers Farms entity, GL. But then one of those employee masters would be shared with the Cascade Holdings and would generate two payrolls that would be fed to two separate companies. Have you guys thought through that process? Or that setup, how that would be handled?
Are you referring to the diagram that you sent?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on just a second.
That was one of our questions.
Yeah. Well, let me finish this, Brooke, because I'm almost done.
Okay.
Let me circle back to that. Okay. Okay, so after labor function codes, our county codes, I mean, that's really simple. And then we have foreman. You can set up foreman. Okay, so now here we are. Yay! Okay. So let me stop and go back to Brooke's question. I'm going to find that diagram that you sent. Pull that up. I can find where I put that.
It's in the Deborah's payroll.
I found it, yeah. Sorry, my computer's really slow accessing the network remotely, so it's taking forever to pull that. Here we go. Okay, Brooke, this is what you're referring to?
That.
Collapse the whole building.
Yeah, that's it, Kathy.
I didn't hear Dan say the whole building was going to collapse.
Unrelated. Yes, you heard him, but totally unrelated to what we're doing here.
I got a new projector.
Rory brought a new projector for the conference room that's as big as a Volkswagen bus.
It's like a Bell and Howell
Oh my God.
from the 50s.
I'm going to start doing drive-in theater out here in our parking lot.
First thing we
Yeah,
landed,
it charges
landed on the
it.
moon
It's
was
possible.
smaller than this.
Okay. So, Brooke, you were referring to this.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about this and how this fits into the architecture of our system. And what we're looking at doing is, you know how you talked about here, you have a shared employee database between Apple House and Gevers, and then between, Gevers over here and Cascade Holdings over here. That's what you're referring to?
Correct. And really on that Apple House Givers Farms, right now we don't have a shared database within our payroll system. We have a shared database within our Novatime clock system.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But still in the clocks, yeah, correct.
Okay. Well, what we were talking about doing is since you have this shared database type concept, is picture this as one, and Judy, help me if I say the words wrong, but picture this as one system, if you will, and that within that system we'll have different, I want to call it maybe partitions, where you'll have Apple House, Gevers, Cascade, and Brewster, and there'll be securities around each partition, and maybe. And for Roy, your sake, maybe partition's not the right word. There'll be different segments. And so what you'll be able to do is to set up an employee in the master file and indicate that that employee works for Apple House as well as Gevers. Or that employee works for, Gevers as well as Cascade Holdings. So that within the database, if you will, it's all one database, but it's secured at a higher level than the database to control this whole segment or partition, if you will. Judy, did I say? Is there another way to describe that, or how did I do?
No, you're right.
Okay.
Brewster payroll would be completely off to the side.
Now, we have multiple reasons for Brewster Payroll to be its own separate, completely segmented. I would prefer it to even be its own database.
Nothing shared about that one.
Okay. All right, we'll have to.
And it's really not going to
Look at
ever
that.
feed a general ledger that's within our system.
Oh, Brewster won't?
Yeah, I think it's kind of done. The general ledger is maintained in, actually, probably in Famous. It probably doesn't necessarily need to be there. I don't know what we're going to do with the GL on that, actually.
Okay.
But it really just needs almost to be a payroll function, and the GL side of it, we can maintain ourselves separately somewhere else.
Okay.
We just need to bring that up, Kathy, in our architecture discussion with John and Mary.
Okay.
In the current system, this Cascade and Gevers share.
The Givers Orchard and Cascade Holdings share their employee database. Yeah.
Right, both things, right.
Sweet.
Because we're running. Can we create two checks here, don't
We create 2 checks, yeah.
I'm glad I'm not in charge. That looks like a messy way to run a business.
All right.
Okay. And with this setup, with this being all together in one system, if you will, I mean, that allows you to even have an employee that maybe works for Cascade and Gevers 1 year, and then maybe the next year he works for Cascade and Apple House and following. I mean, I don't know if you ever have that happen, but,
Sure we do.
you know, with that, they can kind of hop around and work for any of the 3 companies.
Right.
Okay?
Having a certain making sure that
Okay. So can we talk a little bit about some of these items here on some of the items that we talked about? I just wanted to clarify with you guys since we're having our meeting today. But one of the topics that came up was, you know, just Obamacare, the 1094C. Are you all handling that for the 2015 year in your old system, or what was your anticipation on handling that?
We don't really have a game plan yet.
Oh, okay.
I assume the information will come out on the W-2, right, in that system?
It does already come out on a W-2. The 1094C is a completely just healthcare form. I believe the new Famous is going to be able to generate this for us. The old Famous, what the Orchard's using, is probably not. So that's where we have to figure out how we're going to do that process in our old system. But going forward, we need to have a system that's capable of filling this out, much like a W-2.
Right. Because we were just thinking, okay, since the go live date is targeted for the 2016 payroll, the thought process is, well, everything for the 2015 year, W-2s, any Obamacare, documents or anything else would be processed in the old payroll, your current payroll that you're using now.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then we'll just ensure that that's included in our payroll, which we're already working on with Washington Fruit in the old payroll anyway. But then that'll get moved over into the new payroll, so that for the 2016 year, then you would process that out of the new system.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Hand track. I wanted to kind of see if we can get some clarification on that. I know there was some discussion on, are you guys planning to upgrade the system? I wanted to, kind of understand, how we needed to proceed with that. But I know there's been talk about, maybe there's a way to upgrade it because it seemed like it was an older system using older scanners, et cetera.
Not before the end of the year. No way.
Stan's got scared from having to do bin printing with Sonia, so he doesn't want to touch that one with a 10-foot stick. But Sonia and I talked about it a couple of times, so let me have another discussion with her. I mean, the thing's DOS-based, the scanners are dying, it needs replaced. So I'll find out what she thinks.
Kathy, it would be pretty much the same touch points from your perspective, however, right? Same interface points.
Yeah, it's just,
So-
it's just, which vendor do we talk to? Do we
So
talk
from our
to,
perspective, it would be a whole
about
separate
an
project.
interface?
Its own separate timeline over here. I mean, the timeline's the same, but the people involved are different.
We don't use the hand track except during cherries, right?
I really actually cannot tell you.
I'm 95% certain we only use hand track during cherries. Because that's the only time I see
Okay.
them scanning buckets. So I'll find out for sure.
Oh, okay.
Because that was
Okay.
in the past I'd had nothing to see.
So I'm 95% sure it's just use room chairs. But I want to clarify.
And Nova Time is Elizabeth Huckabee, right?
Yes.
Okay. Data Pro Solutions.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we'll wait to hear from you on that, on the hand track. Okay. Employee master, is there a way in your current system, are you guys able to extract data from your system of the, like, employee master data, so that when we get all the fields defined in our employee master, that we can just do an Excel upload, so you don't have to manually enter all that information?
I'm sure that we will find a way to do that. I know on the Windows side we can do that, and I'm sure if we can't find a way to get it out, we can have Tom Amos get us a way to get it out of the whole things.
Okay. So we can go ahead and plan on that.
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. Is there a way on your Windows side, Roy, that you would be able to do a data dump, now or within the next several weeks to send us?
Yes.
Well, you guys told me
Okay.
that it was only quality 2 if it went on to the Bruce line.
Is that the warehouse? Windows side is the warehouse. Orchard side is the old system.
That's on a per pound.
Okay. Okay. Brooke, did you have questions for us?
She's on the phone with someone else. She's multitasking.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I'll be back. How far you want me to go down? Okay. All right. I will send it to you. Anyway. Sorry, what was the question?
We got it. We're all set, Kathy.
Okay. Okay. Question as it related to this diagram. We had some questions or wanted some clarification, and maybe getting a little bit more details in these companies and how they interact or how they don't interact. And I think what we were wondering if it would be possible is to get a couple of use cases. And I guess maybe Bill or Judy, can you help explain what we're looking for to help clarify the process flow of each of these companies, just to make sure that we get it set up properly in the database?
So what we're looking for is employee A works for Apple House and Gebers. This is how it would, he would put in his transactions. We put transactions where in one side or the other side, or a common database. And, how would that flow through the system? And then basically, when that employee gets a check, does he get one check? Does he get two checks? One from Apple House, one from Gebers. We're just looking for a flow of the different scenarios with this diagram.
Yep.
Does that make sense, Sam?
Yeah, it makes sense. We got a lot of people shaking their head up and down, not side to side, so we get why you want it.
Yeah, the basic outcome we're trying to get to is, if I'm in company A, company B, how do I get paid? That's kind of where we're looking at. Do I get, like Judy said, 1 check, 2 checks? Do I get, who's the primary? Does it come out of the two places? Or does it come from a third place? I'm not sure based upon the diagram how it literally works. And that's what we're kind of looking for.
Basically, walk through all the scenarios stand for us. Make sure we have bases covered.
Well, I'm gonna let somebody else try to handle that one. But yeah, okay, Judy.
But yeah, I'm just speaking technical to you.
Yep.
You understand what we're trying to say.
I do.
They want to walk through it, not me rediagram.
For now, I certainly would just give them something to chew on.
Okay.
You know?
So for right now, for the most part, an Apple House employee is an Apple House employee. They get entered into our famous system, and then they also get entered in NovaTime. We don't have any data share between those two systems when an employee gets hired. So that employee clocks in on the clock. That data gets transferred to famous Windows, and then they get an Apple House check. That one's pretty easy, straightforward. Same thing with Givers Farms warehouse payroll. They're entered all the same way, and it all flows down, and they get one Givers Farms warehouse check. Orchard is where we get more complicated. So an employee turns in a timesheet, and they might have worked for either Givers Farms Orchard or Cascade Holdings and one of the third-party companies that payroll handles. So their timesheet gets entered all on one page. It is shared, even though we designate whether they are. Sorry, little side note. On the NovaTime employees that are shared between the Apple House and Givers Farms, that data gets entered into NovaTime, into a shared database. But once that employee is in NovaTime, they're designated as a Apple House or a Givers Farms employee.
You with us, Judy? We're on the left-hand side of the diagram. First 2 columns, it says shared employee, and based on what Brooke was saying, I was just asking if that shared employee was a valid block, and based on what she just said, it's valid to a point.
They're shared in a database, but we really don't share them between the two companies as far as how they get their payroll check.
So basically, the system is, rather than have 2 NovaTime databases and 2 separate systems, we're using one NovaTime system for the hand clock devices and for the database that drives it. But once the employee's entered, you could actually segment those completely apart. Apple House is all by itself, and Givers Farms warehouse is all by itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that sounds like that's what we were going to be doing.
Yeah, and their famous Windows payroll for those two companies are separate, complete companies and databases currently. So we export a file from NovaTime separately for each of those companies. So I say I want company 1, which is Apple House. Give me that export file to feed to Apple House's famous payroll, and give me company 2 employees to export to the Givers Farms famous payroll. Separate company, separate database.
And there might be one change. So up there at the top, Brooke, where we have warehouse payroll and orchard payroll, and they come together and it goes up to Givers Farms. If we were thinking paycheck-wise, we don't issue a combined paycheck between orchard.
No. Each of the diamonds is a separate payroll check.
So at the top where it says
So
Givers
if I
Farms,
had somebody in Apple House and Givers in overtime, 20 hours in each, I would get 2 separate checks.
Correct.
Not one combined with someplace.
Correct.
So we don't do any entity combining to create one check.
hold on.
Correct.
That is correct. She's got to take a phone call, but that is correct. There is no Apple House stands on its own, and Givers Farms warehouse stands on its own.
So where I heard what they said too, was they're entering in the data combined, and then it spreads out and it never comes back together.
Yeah. Okay. So nobody ever gets one check from more than one entity.
Right.
Not between Apple House and Givers Farms warehouse, but Givers Farms Orchard and Cascade Holdings, you can get one paycheck.
So the other side of the diagram.
Correct.
So I can work 20 hours in one and 20 hours in the other and get one paycheck
Correct.
on the other side.
In the
Yes.
orchards?
Say that. What do you
Well,
say?
Say
The
that
Cascade
again.
Holdings, now does Cascade and Gevers Farms orchard checks come together?
No,
No,
Okay, so
they
those stay
should-
separate too?
those are
So
separate. Each diamond is a separate check.
where do the groups, if you work for a big group though, that comes through Cascade Holdings?
Through Cascade Holdings.
Okay.
So all of the third-party billings comes currently from Cascade
Just
Holdings.
Cascade.
Okay, see how the orchard, there's 3 diamonds for orchard. So those are actually one check, not 3 checks for
No.
orchard.
3 checks.
3 checks.
3 checks.
Okay, so I don't understand when you said just a few seconds ago where you said we could have one check with multiple entities.
That would be under Cascade Holdings. The Cascade Holdings actually holds 31 different companies. Similar to the way Washington Fruit has 26 different companies.
So you could work in Mac and Cass partnership, Roy, Cascade.
But
Holdings,
Washington
Orchard.
Fruit, if I work in entity 1 and entity 2, they don't come together to create one check. They have separate little companies within that. So are you saying I entered in Cascade, company 1 and company 2, I'm going to get one check?
Yes.
If I'm in 2 different physical companies?
Where's company 1?
Hold
They're
on.
called ranches at Washington Fruit.
Or ranches or whatever.
Yes, you could work at different ranches in Cascade Holdings for any one of the 31 different entities and still get one paycheck.
Okay.
But that's set up like you said with Washington Fruit, they've got 26 companies, right? But they get different checks. You get 26 different checks?
They get, when they get on their menu right now, they have a ranch option for each ranch.
Oh.
So they'll run option 3 payroll for ranch A, option 4 payroll ranch B, whatever. And they may physically print on the same check, but it's a different whole check run. But if I have hours in ranch A and hours in ranch B, I'm going to get 2 checks.
Cascade Holdings really does payroll for a whole bunch of different companies, but that employee only gets one W-2. It's essentially as Cascade Holdings is the one single employer, but the location of where they worked might indicate where we need to give an invoice to the grower for that payroll. That's part of that other part on the agenda we had on the grower invoice.
Right.
Okay.
So their timesheet comes in, and it just describes the location, and that location tells the system, where to create what we call a charge tag to invoice that third party company for that labor.
But it would never include a Gevers Farms orchard. I want to make sure his
Yeah.
reference to company 1 and company 2, we haven't got him all messed up because of that.
Yeah. So the Givers Farms warehouse or orchard labor is handled on one check and is never included on a Cascade Holdings. Cascade Holdings is Cascade Holdings orchards and the other third parties that we do charge tag invoicing with. 2 separate checks.
It's simple, Steve.
But the employees might turn in a timesheet that includes time for Givers Farms orchard payroll and Cascade Holdings and third-party orchard payroll, and that timesheet is all entered into one input screen. And the system makes the separation that this needs to go to this company for a check, and this other time needs to go to the other company for a check.
Not a different checkbook, but just opposed to their GL account, you mean?
No, an actual separate check.
Within Cascade.
Just one check for Givers Farms orchard and one check for Cascade Holdings orchard.
Oh, okay.
Even though those might have a shared timesheet.
Yeah, I follow. Sorry, I was thinking of it.
Yeah. So basically, we got to handle both scenarios:
Yeah,
individual checks and combined checks.
yeah.
And then Brewster Payroll comes in on its whole individual timesheet, gets entered, it has its own check. It's all in a non-shared database of employees. Never wanting to commingle
Okay.
with even a shared database.
Okay. That helps a lot, Brooke. Thank you.
Okay.
I know we have to educate a little more with the architecture from John, but to me that says we've got a situation where it's a hub and a situation where it's a non-hub. Okay.
Yeah. Are you good, Judy?
Yeah, I think so.
Bill?
You guys good?
Adrian?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Okay. We wanted to expand upon the master concept. Based on the discussion we just had, did we answer that question? Longwood, friends and family?
What was the question? Sorry,
About the master. Expand upon the master concept.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Then the other one was grower invoices, and I wanted just to clarify this, Brooke, because I remember during our discussions and writing stuff on the board when I was there, but then when I got talking with the group in Longwood, I started to get confused, and I just need to clarify with you how this process needs to work as far as the charge tags.
Okay.
So maybe if you wouldn't mind just kind of walking us through what happens there, because what I was explaining to the guys is that, you guys do some services for these growers, and then you need to invoice them. So can you kind of walk us through that just a little bit?
It's kind of not. I'm probably not the best person for that. Sonia's going to be the best person.
Oh,
But I think
okay.
basically what they do is when a certain location is entered for their time, an employee's time, then the system knows that that location is really associated with a certain grower. So it creates a charge tag, gets assigned to it, that says, now I need to group all of these that have to do with the Mac and Cass orchard, and I need to create basically an invoice for this many dollars to reimburse us for the payroll, which includes their payroll and the taxes associated with it. And so at the end of her payroll, she gets a report that says this is how much I need to invoice each of these companies. And they
Right, I remember that report.
they distribute that report around, and everybody cuts their check to cover their portion of the payroll.
So they send that report to the growers, you invoice them for the services,
Correct.
and then they'll get payment
It almost
back.
basically creates like just a receivable, on the books for that labor from each of those companies.
I mean, is there an actual AR subsidiary somewhere where they can see an invoice number and how much is owed, or
I
or
don't
how
think
does that
I
work?
don't think there's an actual invoice number created. I think it moves it over into an AR account, but it's just a dollar amount, and they all fund it the same day as the payroll, and so it kind of gets wiped clean. But if there was actual invoice numbers,
What
it'd probably
Kathy
be
and I are trying to
preferable.
decide, Brooke, is that is this going to be an AR transaction in KISS, or is it going to be something that ends up in grower ledger? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Definitely not grower ledger.
Okay.
I would say AR.
Okay.
And
So when we put it in AR, Brooke, then they'll do a cash posting against it, then declare it.
correct.
Okay.
Okay. So right now it's just going to an account, and they're receiving the money, and then they're probably just doing a journal entry to zero up the account and move it to cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cash probably still gonna stay close there.
As far as
Just,
getting the money from them.
no, not getting the money from them. It's just one word from Joe, as opposed to a journal.
So, Kat, Kathy, maybe this is a question offline, but
Another
how would that go into
cash
general
posting
ledger? Would that
increase,
go on
so quick and easy. Yeah.
a sales journal, or we have to be a new journal?
We may feed it over with the payroll transactions. The payroll feeds it to you. I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to do that.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I think that was. Hold on, let me get my mouse going here again.
Kathy, I have a question.
Yeah.
On the master piece we just talked about, is that a multiple employee master that gets spread out to the individual entity, and it's like a duplicate, or is that just labor transactions that gets collected on that bottom of that screen that you have? The one in the middle between 2 and 3?
Right here.
Yeah, right above the lower one.
This one.
Yeah, where is that like an employee master duplicate into each entity down there, or is that like just labor transactions that get posted?
These would be different labor transactions posted.
So we don't have a duplicate employee master. There's only one employee record in each
Right.
entity.
Right.
Right.
That's how the hub concept works, from what I understand. We'll get a little more educated on that, but that's what I understand, how the hub works. And then the non-hub says it stands all by itself.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay. I think that was all the questions that we had on our side. Based on some of the, like I said, some of the discussions that we had. What I'd like to do then, I think we did get a lot of questions answered. I think even though Sonia wasn't there, so I think we have a better understanding. So if we could chew on this, and I don't know that we necessarily need a session next week, maybe the week after.
That'd be good, Kathy.
Touch point, because by then we will have, gone through some more processes or steps and may have some additional questions. And I don't want to, do it monthly and then, sit there and wait. So start with every other week.
Agreed.
Well, we have one scheduled for July 1st, but we'd like to do one at the end of next week. July 1st is about a week and a half.
First is fine.
A week and a half.
Keep that on the.
So,
You don't keep that on the agenda.
Right, July 1st.
Yep.
Would you like to have one before that?
Nope.
no, I think that's good. That's good.
Okay. All right, we'll keep it there. It's 11 o'clock on a Wednesday.
It's good. We got a couple of questions we need to
Yeah,
answer on our side.
Okay.
Good.
That works. Stan, do you guys have any other questions on your side?
No, good session.
Okay. All right, good.
H2A.
Well, thank you guys for your time.
H2A.
Hold on,
H2A.
hold on.
You're taking into account all the
Yeah.
H2A requirements, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We will get hammered with that one.
Which
Oh, I know you will.
and those change constantly.
Right.
And that's the thing that scares me about being the author of a payroll software program. You've got to keep things updated all the time. Right. And there's a massive amount of liability associated with that. Right. So I hope everybody understands what they signed up for here. Right. So, okay.
All right, Kathy, we're good.
Okay. All right. Thanks all, and we'll discuss your questions, and then we'll look forward to talking to you on July the 1st.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
GD team. Bye.
Well, they're off the speaker. That was a good session. It's only 6 to 10 months overdue. Right. That's the only thing. Dan, I'll tell you, they got some of the best people working on it now. Obviously, Kathy, obviously. Judy, obviously. I don't know who Bill is by name, but he sounds pretty sharp in the background there. A couple things concern me, just all about time. It's all about time now. Do we have enough time to get the product delivered? I mean, even things, the nuances that I'm picking up on Judy, I've known Judy for 100 years.
Right.
She's saying that's how the hub concept works. We have to get more educated on that. To me, that says very specifically that bringing the QFSM technology and infrastructure to bear in this project. Not a bad thing. In fact, looks pretty damn good to me. They just bring in that whole mentality into a group of individuals who don't eat, sleep, and drink it. Okay? She's really, really smart. She can learn it in a matter of weeks. But it's just, is there enough time to get this process done? I'm actually feeling much better than I was in the past 10 months. The screens look great, the concept looked great, the flow looked great. As long as they keep Sonia's heads down, tabbing, you know, keep adding in mind. I don't care what the screen's like, and at the end of the day, neither will Sonia. You know? So.
My concern, I think you have to do payroll on a massive scale, nationwide, to be able to afford to keep up with all of the changes that have to be automatically updated to everybody's system. And I've worried, the same worry